this is going to be a random start, but it's a big story, so follow me if you would. So after Cleveland lost Game 2, I became fascinated with Cleveland radio, and I turned it on, and I was not disappointed. So that they were talking about that. But
it's like a relatively, for the size of the city, it's a pretty intense sports market.
And it's a very, very specific sports market in their complaining, and it's pretty funny. Mm-hmm. So they whatever with the Cavaliers, but of course it did turn to the Browns. Outdoors, the indoor stadium, everything, they were bitching about it. But so if you've been following Shedeur Sanders, he went and spoke to a school, like a school, like in Cleveland, like right after he was drafted. So you think, all right, well, that's nice of the guy. He went to a school. Well, the people in Cleveland do not like this. And the reason is... Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
So the people in Cleveland are very upset because he is getting followed around by a video team.
Yep.
And they don't like that because he has not played in the NFL yet.
To be fair, I think it was one radio host that was upset about this.
Whatever. It was the one I was listening to, and people were calling it and agreeing. And they're like, but it's funny when they talk because they're talking to their own audience. And they're like, this old school town. It's old school town. You know, this is old school town. And then guys would call in and go, this is old school town. And it's funny because you're all talking to each other.
The accent's pretty good too. Adds to it.
But you're all they have that unique. I can't do it, but that unique Cleveland accent.
It's like a cousin of the Detroit accent.
A little bit,
distant cousin of the Detroit.
It's
accent.
Like Pittsburgh and Detroit melted together. But and they're all saying to each other and like nodding along. You can see him nodding along how it's old school town, and you can't just be walking around with the video cameras. I guess I'll ask you. Is this controversial in league circles?
No, I think I know what their point was.
Yes, I get it too.
It's like if you're doing those sorts of things for the right reason, you don't need to post them on social media right away.
Right.
Which I get that, and I think the whole point was this guy just went through a disastrous PR weekend, and now he's trying to
maybe fly under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, the immediate response is to try to like shine and buff his reputation by going out and not by talking to the school,
making sure everybody knows about it.
Making sure everyone knows exactly what you're doing. Yeah. And so, I get that, and like I do think the one thing there is like a lot of people are kind of rolling their eyes at right now as far as the way Shaduer has handled this post-draft is why is the camera crew still around? Why are we still seeing everything? Do we still need to see everything? Or should you go into the team, should you go join your new team as the anonymous 5th-round pick, even though it's hard for you to be that because you've never been that? Like, wouldn't that be the right move here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
Oh, yeah, so it was funny that people are reacting.
There was video of him walking into the facility yesterday.
Yes, and checking out his locker for the first time.
And he's wearing the
dollar sign thing. Yeah.
Right. Like, can you just put on something that doesn't have your personal logo on it?
Let's put the gray sweatshirt on and throw some footballs around.
But you know what's interesting is that Travis Hunter. So at the same time this is all going on, Travis Hunter, who was coached by Deion at Jackson State, and then at obviously Colorado, and is like a son to Deion. Travis Hunter is the second pick in the draft. Jacksonville trades up to get him. Mm-hmm. Then he's graduating from Colorado. I guess he's a 2-time academic All-American. This kid's like, I guess, super smart.
Yep.
So Travis Hunter's graduating from Colorado. He gets taken second in the draft. Deion's kid's walking around with video cameras. He gets drafted in the 5th round. And it does raise, I wonder if Shaduer didn't have Deion as his dad, because that seems like when they separated.
You watch Hunter, like all the stuff from Jacksonville, it's everybody else talking about him. He's not talking about himself. Like everybody's, talking about the GM and his press conference and what he said. And like Travis Hunter's just come across as very unassuming for a guy who did things in college football that nobody's done in like half a century, won the Heisman Trophy, and was the second pick in the draft.
Right. So it does lend itself to, because these guys were mentored by the same person.
Yep.
But one has a dad who created a marketing campaign behind him, and one doesn't. And I understand Travis Hunter's way more talented than Shedeur Sanders, but like, say if Hunter's the second pick in the draft, that means Shaduer should have been a high third round pick, right? Like, I guess if you compare the two, like, or a mid third round pick, whatever, taken way higher than he was, which is 60 picks higher than he was. It does lend credence to, like, Deion went too far with his kid.
Yeah,
because as a football guy, he got both. Raised both those, and his other son got, is an undrafted free agent and got signed by a team. So he's got two kids.
His other son, by the way, came off great. Like, I don't know if you saw any of this stuff about him.
I didn't.
Tampa?
Yeah. So, like, his other son, like, in all those videos that were posted, and I don't know if the whole thing was on Twitch or whatever, but they had, like, a lot of the whole weekend was posted on social media, and Shiloh actually came off excellent. Like, joking around about how, like, with Shaduer and the way he was kind of handling the whole situation. Like, I actually got, like, texts from guys with teams that are like, "Are you watching Shiloh?" Mm-hmm. Like, and how he was kind of helping his brother through it. So, like, that was actually the flip side of it, was that Shiloh actually came off great through the whole thing, like, making fun of himself as, like, the undrafted free agent, and, like,
so yeah,
oh, well, if they hate you, they must really hate me.
So it lends to my point that maybe this whole marketing thing, maybe Deion did undercut his kid, like that, because now you have two examples of, like, guys that are doing better, or at least with Travis Hunter, certainly, because it seems like when he broke off with Deion is when things went really well for him, and then when Shaduer didn't, that's where. So yeah, I don't. Maybe it's a nice lesson for parents.
Well,
there's a time to let go,
and I think there's also, there's just an element there of what you're inviting into your building.
That's it, Bert.
And I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of people, like, the concern that a lot of teams had has sort of been confirmed since the draft.
Because you can let go as a parent, but chances are you are not going to bring with you the biggest helicopter parent in the world who's doing everything for their kid and might be a pain in the ass for teams looking at your kid, is not going to bring the same thing to the table that Deion Sanders is.
Yeah, and
that's what they didn't. It's like, we don't need this. Not for a guy who's probably not going to play. And certainly not going to play this year, so what's the point?
And as I've dug around on it the last couple of weeks, one thing that's really interesting, and I've got this from a bunch of people, is that everybody made fun of the Dylan Gabriel pick, right? What I heard was he checked every single box except for height. And weight.
Yeah.
Like, so, but I
5'11", 200. Yeah.
But there's an important point here, though. Like, as he was going through the process, and as the Browns were meeting with him, and as the Browns did the different things with him, like, he checked every box: personality, leadership, smarts, like all the intangible stuff. Like, Dylan Gabriel was off the charts, and I think that's important now, because that's who Shaduer is going to be compared to, right? So if you have all of this stuff over here, right, and this stuff doesn't calm down and level off, and if he doesn't just become the 5th round pick, look what's sitting right next to him. The coaches who are in that room, what are they looking at? They're looking at 2 rookies.
And they wanted one, and they didn't, and the owner wanted the other.
And I don't know if that's necessarily, I think that might be a little unfair, but because I do think like Shaduer.
So the GM wanted to take quarterbacks in 2 different rounds.
I think Shaduer, the kid, look, what I've heard on, like, as I've dug some more on that, it was just, he was, I don't want to compare him to Brady, but you remember the Brady thing, like, where it was like, he's just sitting up there on the board, and like, it gets to the point where, and I think for the GM and the coach, it gets to the point where it's like, is this 5th round pick going to make our team? You know? And it's like, at some point it becomes worth the flyer, where you're not passing on a guy who's even going to be running down on kickoffs for you. Now you're passing on to get Shedeur Sanders and to just take that swing. You're passing on a guy who may not ever play in a game for you. And then I think
okay, but if I own the team, I don't like that, because what I'm saying is this: is that, well, in the 5th round, we suck. You should get a guy that can play. for us. And second of all, you should be able to get a guy that can at least play special teams for us. And second of all, you took a quarterback. Now we have 5 guys in this quarterback room.
And I don't know how you manage
And
that.
I don't know how you're managing it. So if it wasn't the owner, then I call into question the sanity of the GM.
And so and that's what's so interesting, and what's going to be interesting about the next 6 weeks there is that generally, like, this is like the quote unquote teaching period, and the competition doesn't really ramp up till the summer, but they don't have any choice. They have to at least stage some level of competition because there aren't going to be enough reps to go around in the summer. So they got to figure out, like, to some degree, who can play for them and who can't. And, like, that means over the course of the next 6 weeks, it's like Shaduer and Dylan Gabriel are going to have to earn the opportunity just to compete in the summer, because you can't really efficiently hold a 4-quarterback competition in training camp because you're worried about getting the rest of the team ready to play.
Did they, like, tell Flacco he's making the team in order to sign him?
I don't think he has any.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and if you look, like, that's the other interesting part about it is that the guarantees in Flacco's contract are almost identical to the guarantees in Kenny Pickett's contract. So the penalty for walking away from either of those guys is the same. So then the other layer to it becomes and this is without even getting to what happens when Deshaun Watson's cleared, right?
Yeah,
But in this case, like, part of it is going to be, it's not, are Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders ready to be the starter? It's, are either of those guys ready to be the backup? Because if one of those guys is ready to be the backup, then you could say, okay, like, we can cut one of the veterans. If they aren't, now Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel
are
competing for a roster spot. Right. Like, so that's where Shedeur could get in trouble, is if neither of them are ready to, and generally third-round picks make the team.
Yeah.
If neither of them show that they're ready to be the backup, like, well, then that's when things get a little sketchy, and you start to have the conversation, can we get him through the practice squad? Who are we cutting to keep him? Like, it's definitely complicated. And again, like, if Deshaun Watson gets cleared in September and October, then it's, add a whole different element to the whole
they
thing.
said that he was going to get cleared, they thought, in October.
Yeah.
Well, you would know, too. And that then they can cut him next year. Like, they can cut him in the offseason.
They could, yeah. I mean, they still have the guaranteed money. So, like, that's all part of it. Like, they own $46 million this year, $46 million next year. They aren't getting out of that. That's all fully guaranteed. So they could cut him next year, but they would still be paying him out. You know, like, why it wasn't really feasible to pay him 92, like, and he's hurt now. So that's the other part of it. So, you're not really, like, losing anything by keeping him on the roster right now. We get to next March, now we're talking about something different where it might be just,
They seemed pretty confident that they were going to just cut him.
Yeah, I don't think I think things would have to turn around pretty drastically for him to be on the roster in 27.
Right.
Or 26.
Is that the worst free agent signing, or the worst? Yeah,
I mean, it's up there.
Free agent signing ever.
I can't, considering the
Trade.
dollars
Trade.
That's
But
right.
Herschel Walker.
extended him.
But then they
But Herschel Walker.
was
Herschel Walker
still,
was fine.
Yeah, he was still
I
pretty
think
good.
Terrible.
No. Considering the dollars involved, what can possibly be worse than this?
Yeah.
Well, the Ricky Williams trade was bad.
What, a whole draft for a one
But
player?
but again,
Yeah.
Ricky Williams was a pretty good player.
Well, yeah, but then he retired and came back
But
and everything.
The thing with Deshaun was that at the time,
Ricky Williams really just had one problem, which wouldn't be a problem anymore.
Which wouldn't be a
it wouldn't
problem
even
anymore.
be a problem
Right.
anymore. But
Yeah.
at the time, I mean, I'm not saying it was the only one, but I remember sitting here with Bill and Zoe and saying, like, how do we know he can actually play? Because he hadn't played at that point when they made the trade and then signed him the big extension. 16 months? He hadn't played, and I would say the majority of people were convinced, wow, this is a game changer for Cleveland. This is going to be great. He's the real deal.
But you know what it was, Hardy, though? It was as much as anything else, like, how hard it is to get into that, like, I've referred to it before as being in the club, right? Like, and in the AFC, it's really hard to be in the club. Cincinnati's in the club, Kansas City's in the club, Baltimore's in the club, Buffalo's in the club, and then you have teams that are right there, like, on the periphery, the Chargers, the Texans, maybe the Patriots wind up there with Drake May. We'll see. This was like the Browns looking at it and the prospect of paying Baker Mayfield, which was a big piece of this. They were right at that point where they were going to pay Baker Mayfield.
We're going to have to.
And they basically made the determination, like, we're not going to be able to get to that level with Baker Mayfield, so paying him might be a mistake. So here's a shortcut for us to get in the club, because Deshaun Watson would put you in the club if he played the way that he did before all of.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.